אמרת לעילוי נשמת?
לא לנשמת, לרפואה שלמה של דבורה מרים בת מנורה.
והדרשה באנגלית. We would like to dedicate this lecture for the good health of Dvorah Miriam בת מנורה. יהי רצון שיהיה רפואה שלמה. To also רפואה שלמה to whom? תמר חיה בת רחל. Also תמר בת אילנה, a little child. I guess you wanted me to speak about Shlom Bayit as well as Chinuch Yeladim, peace at home, as well as the education of children. It's a whole Torah. Possible to talk about it for many days. However, with your help, Im Yirtzeh Hashem, we shall discuss a few points to enhance the life of our families, and especially young couples, so that they should learn the way to be taken, to be adopted, so that their life will be a happy story. I just would like to begin with an introduction that is a little bit philosophical. When we ask people, usually we ask people, do you believe in God? Most of people will tell you, of course I believe in God. But the understanding of the word emunah is faith. And everyone knows what is emunah. You ask people, do you have emunah? Of course, I have emunah. The problem is that emunah in the regular Hebrew vernacular means strength. Emunah, the word emunah has almost nothing to do with the concept of faith as we know it, because faith is a matter of feeling, whereas emunah is a matter of doing, strength. How do we know that? We find it in the Torah. In the Torah we find a pasuk when Moshe was watching the battle against Amalek, so he was praying and raising his hands. So the Torah says whenever his hands were raised upward, then the Jewish people won. When his hands came down, then the campaign against Amalek did not go so well. So the Gemara in Masechet Rosh Hashanah is asking, V'chi yadav shel Moshe osot milchama. Why? Do we hang on the hands of Moshe? Does it depend entirely on the hands of Moshe? So the Gemara says, no, it's not the hands of Moshe. It's just that if the Jewish people will have whatever they do, if their concentration in their mind is guided by God, they will be winning. If not, then we cannot expect to win all the time. So now we have learned something. That the word emunah, so the Torah says in Parashat Beshalach, Vayhi yadav emunah ad bo hashamesh. Check this in Parashat Beshalach, in the book of Shemot. Vayhi yadav emunah ad bo hashamesh. And the hands of Moshe remained still, strongly. That's emunah. We get this, if you know Hebrew, then you know emunah comes from the word umman. What is umman in Hebrew? Umman in Hebrew is a professional. Is somebody who masters his profession. A person, for example, let's say, could be an umman in art. It means your hands are steady. They do not hesitate. There is no reluctancy by an umman. An umman is an expert. Why? Because it means that his hands do not sway right or left, but they remain still. So we see that the word umman is derived from the word emunah, and emunah again means strength, which means there is no fluctuation when it comes to emunah. If you really believe in God, it means whether it's good or bad, you always believe in God. You do not change your feelings towards God if the situation, for example, does not go according to your benefit or to your interest. Because many people will tell you, as long as they are happy, they say, I believe in God. As soon as they are disappointed, the first thing is that they are disappointed in God, and their belief is affected. That's not emunah. Because the word emunah means strength, means no changes. The Mishnah says in Masechet Berachot, Hayav Adam levarech ala ra'a keshem shemevarech ala tova. One is under the obligation to say thank you to the Lord, even for bad things, as much as he does for good things. You understand? Why? The Rambam explains in one of his commentaries on Pirkei Avot. He explains that we do not know what is bad or good. Do we really know what is bad for us or what is good? How many times it happened that a person became very rich so that the mafia will take care of him the next day? If he did not become rich, maybe he would live a very peaceful life. And vice versa also. Sometimes a bad thing happens for the benefit of a person. Like the usual story that I always say, that there was a person who didn't have any job, so he went to a synagogue. Can you give me the job of a shamash? I would like to wash the floor, to do something. So they said to him, do you know how to read? He said, no. He said, this job is not for you. So he left. The poor guy, he left. He had to open something. So he opened something, a little store, something. And after a while, he opened another store, and one day he became very rich. So 10 years after, he came back to that synagogue. After he became a very rich man, he came back to the synagogue, he knocked at the door. I would like to speak to the Rabbi. Why? I'd like to thank him. Thank him? Why? I'd like to thank him for refusing to give me a job. Because if he gave me a job that day, I would remain a shamash all my life. But now I am a rich man. So you see that anything that comes to life, if we have emunah, doesn't matter whether it is negative or it is positive. If it is good for us, then we say thank you. If it is bad, we say, you know better, Hashem. That's what we call emunah. Which means you remain the same in either situation. So that's the word emunah. We understand from this that emunah requires ma'aseh. It's not enough to say I believe in God. It's impossible. That's why the Torah obligates us to fulfill 613 mitzvot. That's besides the mitzvot d'Rabbanan. Why? Isn't that enough that I believe in God? No, it's not enough. In order to implement your faith in God, you have to perform mitzvot. Like David HaMelech said in Tehillim, Perek Kuf Yutet 119, in the Psalms, he said, Kol mitzvotecha emunah, which means all the precepts of the Torah, all the mitzvot of the Torah are only for one purpose, to strengthen our faith. You put tefillin every day. There is a chance your emunah becomes better. You pray every day. There is nothing better than prayer, especially if you do it b'chavana. Your emunah is going to be enhanced, no end. But it's gradual. The more mitzvot you do, the more Shabbat you keep, the best that you can, the more your emunah, your faith becomes even greater and greater. But if people think that without performing the mitzvot, they are going to keep their emunah, how wrong they can be, you'll find out that in the first test that they get, immediately their emunah goes down the drain. But a person who keeps the mitzvot day and night, doesn't matter what happens, his emunah is always great. So now we understand that emunah, in order to say that you have emunah, you have to do ma'aseh. That's why our forefathers, when they stood at the mountain of Sinai, they did not ask much. When they were asked to receive the Torah, they said, Na'aseh v'nishma'. Which means the na'aseh, the act, comes before even the understanding. Why is that? Apparently, the logic of human beings is that number one, let me understand, then I will do. And yet, Am Israel understood that when it comes to the Torah, that's the way it works. Do not tell me you have emunah today. Let me see first your mitzvot. If I see that you do the mitzvot properly, then I can hope that your emunah is fine. Otherwise, there's no such a thing. That's why our sages said that if a person is not Shomer Shabbat, it's a big problem. How we handle him. Because his emunah is completely down the drain. And if someone who is not Shomer Shabbat or eats nevelot utrefot, if he does not eat kosher and he tells you I believe, that's a sheker v'chazar. That's a lie. Or maybe he thinks so, but that's not true until he encounters the first test. Which, by the way, tells us, our sages said that. In the Gemara we find, and it's brought in Parashat Shmini by Rashi, when the Torah is speaking about eating kosher and not eating non-kosher things, the Torah says, "Venit metem," do not defile yourself with them, with non-kosher food. And the Torah, which is usually extremely precise, and the grammar of the Torah is impeccable, and yet in that pasuk venit metem, which should be with aleph, because that's the shoresh. Venit metem, the shoresh, the root is tameh, and tameh is written tet mem aleph. But there the aleph does not appear. So if you read it without vowels, you will read venit tamtem, which means timtum. What is timtum? The obstruction of the mind. When a person eats non-kosher, he does not realize that he affects his neshama to the point that he becomes extremely obstructed, which means his emunah is totally null and void. All this is only words of introduction. Every mitzvah requires emunah. Every kind of emunah requires an act. My friends, you wanted me to speak about the first idea, the first concept that we call Shlom Bayit. What does it take to bring peace at home? Especially today, when the world was tamim, when there was naivete in the world. Not too many problems. Just the last generation, 50 years ago, people were more naive. I remember in the old country, we never heard about a divorce. Today, Hashem Yishmor, I'm told 65% of people are the divorce. Today you have to be lucky to have a nice family without any problems. What's going on? Why is it that today there are so many infractions in Jewish life and life at home as we know it, versus the kind of harmony that used to exist just 40 years ago? What was that made life so simple and yet so happy, when today life is full of luxury? Practically anything that we want is here. Unbelievable what we have today. Cannot compare any generation in the past to today. Today's generation is just scary when it comes to think about how many ta'anugot, how many pleasures you have in the world. Unbelievable. By the way, there is a hint to that in the Zohar HaKadosh, that before the Mashiach comes, all the inventions, everything, chokhmat ha-goyim, the goyim will have tremendous chokhmah, and they will be able to invent, Jews also, inventions and science, they will be booming and blooming before the Mashiach comes. That's one of the signs of the Mashiach. So today we see things that no other generation has seen before. And yet, instead of using that great benefit that we have today to make our life better, we are witnesses to the fact that so many houses, so many homes are broken. It's unbelievable. Even among religious Jews, there was a time that you couldn't hear such a thing among Torah Jews. But today you do hear things. Of course, not as much, not as many cases as a non-Shomer Torah house. But still the world is totally different today. What's going on? Why? Let me talk about love. Ahava in Hebrew. We spoke about emunah. So now you understand that emunah has to do with ma'aseh. It's not just a belief. You have to do an act. You have to perform things in order to validate your emunah. Same thing also with love. By the way, ahava, which means love, has a numerical value. It has gematria. Aleph, he, bet, he. Together it's number 13. Everybody knows that. And 13 means echad. What is echad? One. Like we say, Shema Yisrael, Hashem Elokeinu, Hashem echad. So what's one? How do we get the one from echad? Aleph is 1, chet is 8, and dalet is 4. Together you have 13 again. You see that ahava has the same numerical value as echad, which tells us number one, rule number one. What is real love? Unity. And this, I have to talk about this a little. Ladies and gentlemen, what is unity in the family? Is unity means that the husband does his things and the wife does her things? Of course, why not? That's the way it's supposed to be. But in a way that each one does whatever he wants? Is that what we call unity? That's rather, it's division. Unity means what you do, I do, and what I do, you do. That's unity. Our sages said when a person is not married, is considered palga de gufa, half a body. So we understand that to be married means that you and your wife make up one body. But you have to exercise this philosophy that two are in fact one. If there is love, then they are one. If there is no love, they are two. When do we reach the concept of oneness? And when do we see, unfortunately, the concept of two? Let me explain myself. I hope you like a little bit of philosophy. Of course, around the Torah. We find that there is a pasuk. We find it in Kohelet, written by Shlomo HaMelech. Matza isha matza tov, v'yafek ratzon me'Hashem. He found a woman, he found good. The Talmud in Masechet Berachot brings two pesukim contradictory, and yet one following the other. The first pasuk that the Talmud brings is this pasuk that I said, Matza isha, matza tov. You found a wife, you found good, that's good. I tell you why it's good, it's very simple. If we go to Masechet Yevamot, on page 63, we will find, Kol ha-sharui belo isha, if you have no wife, sharui belo simcha, you have no joy, sharui belo shalva, there is no peace, sharui beli shalom, sharui beli bracha, there is no blessing. Everything hangs on the woman. You know that in the eyes of our sages, everything in life is the woman. Let's go to the Gemara in Masechet Baba Metzia. We find there, Heve mechabed et ishto, שהברכה אין הברכה מצויה בביתו אלא בגלל אשתו שנאמר ולאברהם היטיב בעבורה. Be very careful. Remind me to come back to מצא אישה מצא טוב, by the way. But in the meantime the Talmud says you have to be very careful to respect and honor your wife. Why? שאין הברכה מצויה בביתו אלא בגלל אשתו. All the blessing that you can expect to have in life is only because of your wife. And we find this in reality with the story of Avraham Avinu and Sarah. The Torah says, Avraham hetiv ba'avura. You know, Avraham became very rich and he had everything. Hashem berachet Avraham bakol. Hashem blessed Avraham with everything. The Talmud says, you want to know why? Because he honored his wife. Because of his wife, he got everything. That's unbelievable. That's a chidush. Now we understand that the wife is the source of everything that comes good to you. It says also in the Gemara, Heve zahir bichvod ishto, שמתוך שדמעתה מצויה, כך פורענותה מצויה. Which means you have to be very careful to honor your wife, because as her tears are easy to come out, so is the punishment will come if you disrespect her. We have seen here two passages that are almost contradictory. On one hand, we find that every benefit that you have is because of your wife. On the other hand, you have to be very careful, because if you have any problems, it's because of your wife. Unbelievable. Let me suggest another passage in the Talmud in Masechet Yevamot. It says that when Hashem created Adam and Chava, He says, first He created man. Very good. How did He create man? Special kind of creation. He produced it from the earth. Right? Everybody knows that. When He decided to create the woman, He did not do the same. Ladies, do you hear that? He did not take some earth and build a woman. No. The Torah says, you know, it's a mystery. It's unbelievable. Why is it that the man is made of the earth and the woman is taken from the man? That He took a piece of his flesh and from that He built the woman. You know, people don't like to stop and think. You read this, you have to ask yourself, how come? Where the answer is quite easy to understand. Because Hashem's intention to create a woman was to complete the man, to bring his perfection. The woman is the perfection of man. That's the reason why she could be the source of all the blessings. But if she stays out of her realm, which is not what the Torah indicates, and she becomes an independent entity, then all you can expect is troubles. And that's where comes the second pasuk of Shlomo HaMelech. Umotze'ani mar mimavet et ha'isha. I find the woman worse than death. So the Talmud is asking, how could this be? Only before you said, Matzah isha matzah tov, that you find in a woman everything that's good. And immediately after you tell me a contradiction, another verse where it says, and I find the woman worse than death. How could this be? Even though I did give you a certain expose before by citing what the Talmud says, that on one hand you have to respect very much your wife because all the blessings that come to you is only because of her. On the other hand, you have to be very careful to respect your wife, because if you don't, her tears will flow out, and then prepare yourself for a punishment. So now we see that the woman is on one hand tova, means good. On the other hand, she could be dangerous. Up to whom? Up to you. Up to the kind of respect that he gives to his wife. You know, the Talmud says in Masechet Ketubot, Rabbeinu HaKadosh, Rabbi Yehuda HaNasi used to say, Okiru lenashaycho, that's Aramaic. Okiru lenashaycho ki hechideti ta'atteru, which means respect and honor your wives if you want to become rich. Isn't that a nice statement? You want to be rich? Well, make sure you honor your wife. Of course, I'm talking about this generation. That's a big problem. What is the problem of this generation? I mean, until the last generation, for all the centuries, what I said before makes sense. Because life was really easier, nicer. I'm not talking about luxuries, I'm talking about the home. It's possible that the home had hardly a table and a few chairs, but at the same time there was happiness. But today, when there is so much opulence, so much, could have so much, and yet the world is replete with marital problems. Where do we find the distinction? You know, Rabotai, the distinction is in those two pesukim that I cited before. The first pasuk, let's repeat again. The first pasuk that King Solomon said, Matzah Isha Matzato. Where do I put the emphasis? In the word Isha. He didn't say Ha-Isha. But the second pasuk comes and says, Umotze ani mar mimavet et Ha-Isha. What is the difference between Isha, which means woman, and Ha-Isha, which means the woman? Why is it that when you say Isha, then it's tov, it's good, but when you say Ha-Isha, it's bad? In previous generations, no one understood the difference. I think that's the reason why the Talmud says that they used to ask a Khatan when he gets married at that night, in the morning they would ask him, no, is it Motze or Matzah? Tell us. If it is Matzah, it means it's good. Matzah Isha Matzah Tov. If it is Motze, oh boy, it's Marmi Mavet. So they used to ask him. But the Talmud does not bother to explain to us the difference. And we remain without understanding the difference. But today it's clear. Because for the first time in the world, now I'm turning to the ladies. After I have given so many praises and so many insinuation as to the respect and the honor of the women, now I am coming to tell them the following, which is very possible that someone will not be pleased with that. The difference between Isha and Ha-Isha. You know, in Hebrew when you say He, Haidi'ah, that's the article. What's the difference? The difference, if you say Isha, is exactly like the Torah says. God called her Isha, Ki me'ish luko chazot. When you call her Isha, it means she is part of Ish. Ah, that's great, that's unity. Matzah Tov. And I will explain later in which way this unity is exemplified. But when you say Ha-Isha, it means she is by herself. Not that she is not married, but she is the kind of woman who tells her husband, don't bug me with my things and I will not bug you with your things. I am independent. You are independent, I am independent. She'll be lucky if she tells him, you are independent. But Ha-Isha means, I am by myself. We never found this to happen except in this generation with what they call the feminist movement. And America is the first one to have fallen into this trap and has caused the world, a tremendous catastrophe. The woman was made. Watch how the Bible tells us the story of the creation of the woman. The woman is supposed to be part of man, rather even more than part of him. She becomes his perfection. She is to be his blessing. Let me explain this further, since we gave you already a little lesson about Hebrew. How do you call in Hebrew, when you get married, at the time of the wedding hall, so you have the queen, you have the groom, and you have the Kalla. All right, the bride. So she is called in Hebrew what? Again, I repeat again. Kalla. Do you know what is Kalla? The word Kalla is very, very, very much telling. You know that Kalla comes from the word Vaychulu. Vaychulu hashamayim ve'haaretz v'chol tzeva'am. Everybody recites the Kiddush. What is Vaychulu? Which means Hashem completed the creation of the world, and now the world is beautiful. Ve'hineh tov me'od. Remember? That's what it says in the beginning of the Torah. Vaychulu hashamayim ve'haaretz. So the word Kalla means completion, means perfection. The man without a woman is worth a penny, not even a penny. With a woman he is worth $1 million. Before he was half, but now he's one, complete. That's why we call her Kalla, because she comes to tell me that she comes to be his kolelet hakol. She's everything. But remember, I'm going now to disappoint you. The word Kalla, which means perfection and completion, means also Kalaya. How do you say in Hebrew to destroy or to exterminate? Lechalot. Right? Kalaya. Extermination. Catastrophe. Everything. So how come Kalla, which means bride, means both? Means perfection and completion, which is so positive, but it could mean also the other way. It means mar mimavet, exactly like King Solomon said. On one hand, matzah isha matzah tov. On the other hand, umotze ani mar mimavet et isha. In fact, everything that I am saying here is put in 2 words by the Talmud in Masechet Yevamot on page 63. And there it says, when Hashem created the woman, He says, "E'esel lo ezer kenegdo." Hey man, he looked at the man, he says, by yourself you cannot make it. You are not worth much. And he decided to create a woman. Only not in the way he created man, but from his own flesh. Meaning, as we said before, she has to be part of him. He has to be part of her. Both of them are one body. Remember the word ahava. Ahava, love. Which means, gematria, the numerical value of echad. Oneness. But he says, "E'eselo ezer kenegdo." Again, watch the mystery of the language of the Torah. You know, it's unbelievable if you know the wonders of the Torah. If you could study the Torah day and night, you will discover the marvels of the Torah if you open your mind. Every word, every letter, every paragraph is mystery of mysteries. People read the Bible, they think they know it, they think they understand it. You have to study years and years in order to understand the slightest verse of the Torah. Think the Torah is easy? But it's wonderful. The Torah is the magic of the Jewish people. To fall in love with the Torah is to fall in love with life. Mamash. That's why we call on Shavuot those who have the minhag to sing the ketubah. You know that Hashem, when He gave us the Torah, He practically married us. He married us to Him. So on Shavuot we read a certain poem, a big one, that we call ketubah. The ketubah that a man gives to his wife when he marries her That's what we read, but it's only a mashal for the fact that Hashem has espoused us the day when He gave us the Torah at the mountain of Sinai. So now, so you see why? Because the Torah is so beautiful and so splendid that it means life for those who understand it, for those who delve in it. But that's the mashal of the wife. The wife is the perfection of the person. But I would like not to sway from the idea that I'm trying here to convey. So the Torah says, when Hashem created the woman, He said, I am going to make a helper mate for him. But that's English. English is a language that is beautiful, but there's no mystery there. Like the Shlach Kadosh says, all the international languages are heskemiyot. What is heskemiyot? There is an agreement. You say thank you, everybody understands what is thank you. You say whatever it is, everybody understands. You understand. You don't look for the inside understanding of the word. Does anybody know what is the meaning of thank you? I challenge anyone, if you could give me a definition of the word thank you. Can you? And not only thank you, every word. It's called heskemi. Like for example, the word thank you. How do we say in French? Anybody knows French here? I know French.
Merci.
Merci. Yeah, of course, but merci is also I think it's Persians or Bukharian, they say merci, right? What is merci? If I ask somebody what is merci, he'll tell me. It means thank you. But what is thank you? It's only an agreement that when you say thank you, it means that you are showing your appreciation to someone, right? But the real meaning of the word you don't have. Not in the Hebrew. The Hebrew is the language of God. And therefore every word there requires understanding. How do we say thank you in Hebrew? Toda. And what is Toda? Could you give me a definition of Toda? No, maybe its derivation. Where does it come from? Of course, everybody understands what is Toda, but what is the meaning of the word Toda? Huh? The what? Huh?
Sacrifice.
Sacrifice? That's Korban Toda. The Korban is the sacrifice. The Toda is the purpose. To say thank you to Hashem, you bring a sacrifice. Bad mistake. Sorry. He says Korban, the Korban Toda. The Korban is the sacrifice. But Toda is the meaning of that Korban. Because you come to Hashem to say thank you, so you bring Him. So again, we are stuck again with the problem. Why Toda means thank you. The word Toda, this is by the way. The word Toda comes from the verb lehodot. What is lehodot? To thank. So, how do I know that lehodot is to thank? The root of lehodot is yad. Like it says in the Megillat Echad that we just read in Tisha B'Av, Vayaddu even bi. When you throw the stone upward, you need your hand. That's why we call the hand yad in Hebrew. Because it can do leyadot. Anybody knows Hebrew here? You know that leyadot means to throw up, upward. That's why we call it yad, because it has the capacity of leyadot, to throw a stone, for example, upward. So now we understand what is Toda. You know what is Toda? It comes from lehodot. It comes from leyadot. What does it mean with all this? It means that now, my friend, because you did me a service, when I say Toda to you, I am elevating you. It means that you are higher for me now. I am your slave. The Talmud says if one opens the door for his fellow man is his slave for the rest of his life. His slave means that he owes him. I owe you. You give me you give me a gift, I owe you. That's why, by the way, it says in the Bible, "Vesone matanot yihyeh." The one who hates gifts will live. What does it mean? Everybody loves gifts, but when someone gives you a gift, you lose some of your free will. So you are not considered fully alive. Fully alive means that you don't owe anybody. That's the meaning of it. So Todah means from the verb leyadot, lehodot. Now I understand what is Todah. Todah means I elevate you. You are higher. Because I owe you. I am lower and you are higher. That's the meaning of Todah. That no one can do the same with other languages. Now, we go back to Kala. The word Kala represents perfection. Like Vaychulu Hashamayim ve'aretz. Everything comes from the wife. All the blessing. If you win the lottery, say thank you to your wife. If you become a millionaire, say thank you to your wife. If you are healthy, say thank you to your wife. Everything that's good, that comes to you, you have to say thank you, because it's only because of her. That's what Hachamim tell us. But that doesn't mean that she is all safe. She could be dangerous. But again, you have to understand. She could be dangerous indeed. But it's your fault. And I'm going to prove this point. The Talmud says that when Hashem created her, He says, Ezer kenegdo. Watch the Torah again, it's unbelievable. The Torah could have said, and I am going to bring him a wife. Instead, he used those words. I am going to create a helper mate against him. That's kenegdo. So now we don't understand. On one hand, he calls her helper. The helper is not against you, it's for you, right? And yet he calls her a helper mate against you. The Talmud pinpointed this mystery. And the Talmud says immediately, Zacha, na'aset lo ezer. Lo zacha, kenegdo. All depending on the man. If he has the merit, if he's shomer Torah u'mitzvot properly, if he does everything that should be, she's going to be his helper. But if not, lo zacha, she's going to be against him. So now we understand, how can we blame our wives? When everything is good or bad, is our doings, is the man's doing. I hope you understand what I'm saying here. I'm not trying here to blame anybody, but I'm just going to tell you that that's the secret of what's happening today. Today, somehow, many kind of women, the feminists, they thought that their happiness is only by being separated. Which means we live in the same house, but you don't tell me what to do, I don't tell you what to do. That's feminism. I am independent, you are independent. How silly is this kind of concept? My goodness, how big is this mistake? A woman is supposed to be part of his husband, of her husband. She's supposed to complete him. Yes, she can be superior, no question about it. But at the same time, her job is to perfection her house, to perfection her husband. It's impossible for a woman to be a woman if she is independent from her husband. So now you understand the words of the Psukim again. The Torah says, Matzah Isha, if she is Isha, which means not independent. You understand what I mean by independent? I hope you don't get the point that I mean here, that the woman should be a prisoner, chas v'shalom. Oh no! The Talmud says that. Lama nikret akeret bayit, mipnei shehi ikaro shel bayit. She's everything. She's the essence of the house. Everything. So that's not what was meant here. What was meant here, that there is a need for one in the family, for the nobility of the family, for the success of the family to be, let's call him the king. The husband is the king. Now the woman, who are you? You want to be a queen? Nice. There is only one condition if you want to be a queen. If your husband is the king. You understand? Can she be a queen if the husband is not a king? Impossible. Unless if he dies. But if they are together and she wants to be a queen and he is not a king, it's impossible. The only way for her to be a queen is if he is a king. So what is the job of the wife? Is to give him the feeling that he is the king. That doesn't mean that he has to order her. That doesn't mean that he has to chas v'shalom frustrate her in any way. That does not mean that he has to belittle her. Oh boy, that's the big trap. If you belittle her, or if you cause her any bad feelings, remember what the Talmud says. Her tears are easy to come. As her tears are easy to come, her pur'anu, the punishment also is quick to come. What is the punishment in that case? Punishment is that nothing goes. In a house where the husband is against his wife and the wife against her husband, nothing is going to succeed. There is no success. Even if there is money, that money is fading. Nothing. You want a bracha? There must be a mutual completion. That's the only way. The wife looks upon her husband as the king. The husband looks upon his wife as the queen. Now we can say that we have harmony. Unlike what the stupid generation is saying, that I want to be independent. You don't understand what you are doing to yourself. You know that scientifically talking, the woman doesn't want to be independent. I hope you understand what before you jump on my throat. I hope you understand what I am saying. A woman, by nature, she doesn't want to be independent. The Talmud in Masechet Kiddushin says that. Tav lemetav tando mi lemetav armelo. That's Aramaic again. Which means a woman's nature, she doesn't want to be alone. She wants to be with two, her and her husband. Oh yeah, we hear many girls, I don't want to get married. Today men are terrible. It's not true. Don't believe that. It's a lie. A woman usually wants to be married. A woman usually wants to have a stable life. And what's a stable life for her? I want to have my husband. I want him to take care of me. That's the reality of a good house. Of course, chas v'shalom, he has to care for her, because that's the reason she was given to him. Do you know that the wife is considered to be a gift? That's the gift of God to every human being. You don't treat a gift when you in a negative way. By extending to her all the good things that you can give her, you are giving yourself a fountain of life and success. That's the secret of a beautiful harmony in a house. Absolutely. But when Ha'isha, when she wants to be Ha'isha, which means independent of him, that's marmi mavet. Even King Solomon understood that. That's worse than death. What is worse than death? When life goes wrong. You know, I see this almost every week. Unfortunately, people come to me either for divorcing or for counseling. It's a terrible situation. And today men also, they stopped understanding at all. But when you go back to the old ages, there's no such a thing. The woman was his helper maid. She was there for him. And therefore he's there for her. No question about it. But if she feels that she believes in what this modern generation is offering her, and she's taking it by right, she doesn't know that she's practically digging her own trap. Because that's against nature. Nature is that the wife wants to have a husband who treats her well, who takes care of her. I understand that this generation is different because today both of them, they go to work. That's not the best way, by the way. The Mashiach is going to come and he's going to tell everyone, you go to work, you stay home. But then you stay at home like nobody. It means that there is a job for everyone. But today what can we do? That's the way it is. That's the way it is. He goes to work, she goes to work. That's not so bad. It's okay. It's bad in a way, but we cannot go against the movement of life today. So what happens? So even though both of them have to go to work, that doesn't mean when they come back home they cannot complete each other with love and harmony and everything? Let me conclude the talk by the following. I did not say one word of whatever I wrote here, because the subject is extremely wide. Let me tell you just this, and maybe, if you wish, that's what we will conclude. That's what with which we will conclude. 3 times we find in the Torah the concept of love. 3 times. Where? In the very beginning of the Torah, there is one kind of love. V'davak be'ishto v'hayu lebasar ehad. That's mamash in the first 2 paragraphs of the Bible. We find there that the first love is the man and his wife. Later I will explain why is it that it begins the Torah with that. If you jump ahead directly into the middle of the Torah, you come to the book of Vayikra, Parashat Kedoshim. You find there the second concept of love. Ve'ahavta lere'acha kamocha. You have to love your fellow man like yourself. That's the second kind of love. What is the third kind of love that we find in the Torah? You jump again to the end of the Torah, almost in the book of Dvarim. And there you will find Ve'ahavta Parashat Aikev Ve'ahavta et Hashem Elokecha. That everybody knows because we recite Shema. Ve'ahavta et Hashem Elokecha, the commandment of loving God. Why is it that the Torah puts first the love between a man, a husband and wife in the beginning, then in the middle the love between one and his fellow man, and at the end the love of God? The Maharal says the following. The first love is the natural love. God, when somebody gets married, he falls in love. She fell in love, he fell in love, very nice. Everybody fell in love. Up to the wedding, everybody falls in love. After the wedding, it's a different story. That's the kind of love that God created as a gift. It's an encouragement. Otherwise, people are not going to get married. And the Torah says, Per urvu, multiply, procreate. Because you want to know the truth? What is the real reason for this world? For living in this world? I wish I had time. I know you have to go. But if I could retain you until tomorrow, all night, I would tell you marvelous things about the reality, why we came to this world. But in a jiffy, I will tell you that the main reason is to bring children. Peru urvu. That's why Hashem wants a husband and wife to be together. Because yeladim, that's the real reason why we were sent to this world. But let me go away from that subject till I concluded the subject of Shlom Bayit. So we said, in the very beginning comes the easiest kind of love, the love that is instinctive. Suddenly you see a woman, before you get married, that's it, he fell in love. She saw him, that's it, that's my husband. Where did you work for it? He didn't work for it. He did not do much for it. Hashem gave it to you because He chose. The Talmud says, 40 yom milifnei, before we come to this world, in heaven we already meet. The husband meets his wife. The neshamot, they meet each other. 40 days before you are born, you know exactly who is going to be your wife. Sometimes people can have to wait longer than others, but that's already a different subject. Maybe for another lecture. How do we find our mazal? Alright. In the meantime, everybody knows. You know how many books were written about love? Unbelievable. Maybe the biggest number of all the books in the world was about love. But in Bethlehem, love is in fact a gift of God, that God puts between the husband and wife so that they can get married. That's all. And so they will bring children. Peru urvu. Very nice. That's something that you don't have to work hard for it. Either it comes or not. You fall in love, you fall in love. You don't fall in love, that's a different story. The Hasidim, Baruch Hashem, don't have to go through this. You know what happens with the Hasidim? Believe me, they are the smartest. They already chose, when they were still children, they already choose who is going to be one for the other. So today we look upon this with disdain. That's savagery. That's not true. That's chokhmah. When they grow, those two young men and women, they are going to love each other more than anybody. And yet, before they got married, they don't even know. So today, if you tell this to an American, he tell you this is crazy. What? This is barbaric. It's not barbaric. That's wisdom. You think love. Love, on the contrary. If you wait to fall in love, that's the love that God gives anyway. But if you want the real love, it's only that way. When they are both of them innocent and they join each other with the love that is superb. How many divorces do you hear happening among the Hasidim? How many? Today, maybe one or two. And not much. Compared to the others. How come? They did not even know each other before they got married. That's the whole thing. You don't understand the chokhmah that there is in simplicity. Forget about that. Now we discussed the fact that there is one love. Love number one is husband and wife. That comes in the beginning of the Torah. But why is it that Hashem chose this to be in the beginning? Because Hashem wants us. Listen to this. If you want to succeed with the second love, the Torah says, you have to love each other. Come on, crap. Oh, who loves each other? Everybody loves himself. That's all there is. So how come the Torah is asking me to love each other? Why? Doesn't the Torah understand that this is impossible? It's only hypocrisy when somebody says, I love my friend. Sometimes there is always interest. There is always some benefit there. Is this love? I love my friend because I play cards with him. That's love. I love my friend because I have good business with him. Let's see if you love him. If he's in trouble and he does not interest you no more. All right. In many cases, you could always discuss with me and argue with me that it's possible. So how come the Torah is asking me, it seems to be impossible? That's not true. You want to learn how to fulfill the mitzvah of loving your fellow man? Train yourself with your wife first. If you make sure that you love your wife and she loves you, then you are on the way to understand how you can love also human beings, plain human beings. Because with your wife, it's a training program. There are ups and downs in every house. Right or not? Ups and downs everywhere. Have your wife, it's easier to love. Even in times of distress. Even though anger could spoil everything. But that's a different lecture. Ka'as, that's another big spoiler. But in the meantime, if you succeed in the first commandment of loving your wife, Vedavak ish beishto, you will learn how to also succeed in the second commandment of loving your fellow man. But if you don't do it, if you don't love your wife, and if there is a rift between husband and wife, forget about loving her. Don't believe people who say, I love my friend. Or Shtuyot. Rabbi Haim Vital, alav Shalom, the Talmid of Ari HaKadosh. We mentioned the Ari before. Rabbi Haim Vital says, let's say you are a great human being. Wonderful. Very nice with everyone. Very polite. Derech Eretz. Helpful to people. But only outside. When you come inside, when you come to your house, hey! Is it ready? My meal is ready? What's going on here? Leave me alone. I cannot hear anybody. Well, wait a minute. What happened to you? You were par excellence the best outside. You come home, you become a monster? What's going on? Rabbi Chaim Vital says, even if you fulfill all the Torah, and even if you are the best of the best outside, if you are not the same way with your wife, the best of the best with your wife, in heaven they will write that you were the worst with everyone in the world. Because everything depends on how you treat your wife. You treat your wife the proper way, then when you treat your fellow man the proper way, I can believe you. Unbelievable words said by one of the greatest Kabbalists of all times, the Talmid of Ari HaKadosh. So the story has not ended yet. You succeed with the love and respect of your wife, you will have success also in fulfilling the mitzvah, a great mitzvah. Ve'ahavta lere'acha kamocha. Remember what Rabbi Akiva said about this? Anybody knows? What did Rabbi Akiva?
זה כלל גדול בתורה.
יפה מאוד, זה כלל גדול בתורה. Which means the mitzvah of ve'ahavta lere'acha kamocha, loving your fellow man like yourself, is practically the whole Torah. Like Hillel says, זוהי כל התורה כולה ואידך זיל גמור. The rest you could find it yourself. But the whole Torah is this. You love your fellow man. You love human beings. Then you know the whole Torah. But it's not enough. We still have to graduate to the greatest love of all. The love of God. Can you love God if you hate your wife? Impossible. Can you love God if you hate your fellow man? Or if you have hatred for anybody? Impossible. When a person can say, I love God, is only if his heart is full of love for his wife and for his fellow man. You have succeeded in both the first commandments of love. You will succeed finally in the greatest mitzvah of the whole Torah. Ve'ahavta et Hashem Elokecha. That's why it comes at the end of the Torah. So now we understand that the Torah has trained us in a plan, in a program, how to bring yourself into total success. Success, the real success, begins with success at home. And success at home means respect your wife, honor your wife, and the wife should regard her husband as the king. This way she can be the queen. And love permeates both of them. That's when you can expect success in everything. Sharui belo bracha, sharui belo simcha. Now you could say you have simcha because so many couples, they were very poor and yet they were so happy. It's unbelievable. Why? Because they had each other, him and his wife. He had his wife. You know, Rabbi Shlomo Zalman Auerbach, alav Shalom. Remember the great posek of Israel? He passed away just a few years ago. One day his wife, when they were old, him and his wife, the greatest posek of this generation, Rosh Yeshivat, anyway, one day he went to his wife had a big problem with her leg. She had pain, so he took her to the doctor, and he said, "Doctor, our leg is aching. Haregel shelanu koev." He didn't say my wife's foot. He says our feet, our foot. Which means he regarded his wife as his own body. So if his wife is in pain, he is in pain. That's love between husband and wife. That's what should be. Now let's say, you heard me and you say, oh come on, but you don't know the situation in the houses, sometimes it's terrible. How can I love her? How can she love him? The point is that it's always possible to find something good. You know, Rabbi Hiya alav Shalom, the Talmud says that Rabbi Hiya had a bad wife. Very bad wife. Shara'a. The Talmud says, Ishara'a poteret min ha-geinom. A bad wife, at least she has also benefit, even by the way, a wife, even when she is bad, she's very beneficial. She saves you from hell. She saves you from Geinom. So Rabbi Hiya, he suffered enormously from his wife. Whatever he wanted to give me tomato, she brought him radishes. He wanted always the opposite. One day his Talmidim said to Rabbi, get rid of her. Divorce. He said, God forbid. Why? He said to him, but you are suffering every day. He says, no. Dayam shematzilot otanu minachet. It's enough that she saves me from sin. And that's a tzaddik. Which means, I'll tell you the truth, Rabotai. I told my wife many times, for bad or for good, I don't know the meaning of the word divorce. There's no such a thing. Rabbi Avigdor Miller, alav Shalom, used to tell us this all the time. The word divorce does not exist. But what can I do? It's impossible to live with. Learn how to live with her. But she is bad, or he is bad. He is a monster. If you know how, you will know how to live with him. And by the way, how did we begin the lecture? חייב אדם לברך על הרעה כשם שמברך על הטובה. Listen, many times your mazal is to suffer a little with your wife. Other people suffer with cancer. You suffer with your wife. So you have to say to Hashem, thank you very much anyway. You know, if you take it from that, you are going to find out that life is going to become much easier and better. I know. Who am I? I'm not kidding anybody. I know that it's not easy. But the truth is, that if only people could try to make an effort, they will find good in everyone, especially his wife, and especially in her husband. She can find many good things. Okay, let's say it doesn't work, or let's say it's good for nothing, as they say. If you could do it Leshem Shamayim, you are going to find happiness with him also. But in normal circumstances, all they have to do is to understand each other. Nobody is perfect in this world. And we are permeated with midot ra'ot, which means we have all kinds of problems. This one has a hot temper. This one has all kinds of, he is cold like ice. This one has no feelings. This one has too many feelings. You have to learn. That's why we study the books of Musar. You have to learn how to live with each case, with each character. Now let me conclude with the second request that I heard, talking about the education of children. I could talk about the education of children for many hours, but I have to finish in 3 minutes. So let me tell you, everything that I said now is for one purpose, to bring children to the world. But again, children to the world is not easy. Again, today, do you see what's happening today with children? Are these children of today are the children that we knew yesterday? Today you cannot even talk to the child. Unfortunately, I have seen so many fathers who have no power at all against their young children. No power. They lost their power because they need, in order to succeed with the child, we need unity between the husband and wife. That's the first secret of the success with the children. You want to succeed, you want to have beautiful children and good children and blessed children? Number one, take care of yourself and your wife. Automatically, the children will be good. But you have to be in agreement. The husband has to be in agreement with his wife and vice versa. Always. Let's say he wants his child to go to yeshiva. Chas v'shalom, that she should say, I don't want him to go to yeshiva. Or vice versa. They should be in agreement in everything, because that's the source. That's the secret of having good children. Today, children is the biggest catastrophe of the world. To have today, כמו שאומרת התורה, אין בית אשר אין שם מת. There is not one house that has no monsters among the children. The girls do not listen anymore. The young men do not listen anymore. Why? But in families of Shomrei Torah, it's not that bad. It's already something. When all the families around the learning of Torah, automatically, even the children, when they grow up in Torah, they understand. It is possible that today that also is not so great. But at least somehow, when the whole family is reunited around the Torah, ha'or shebah machziro lemutav. Even if the child grows not so well, but the light of the Torah gives him changes. He changes. Hanoch lanna'ar al pi darko. Of course, as I said, there are so many things to say about chinuch yeladim. Do you know, my friends? Just the last month, tragedies upon tragedies. First, we lost 4 big Rashi Yeshivot to the detriment of Am Yisrael. Then a little child in Borough Park has been not only killed, slaughtered, butchered by a Jew. This has to have some kind of message for us. I will not talk much about it, even though I had so much to talk about it. But I tell you the truth. Who's really responsible? That crazy guy, you think? He's a keli in the hands of God. He's only an instrument. It's Hashem talking to us. And He's saying to me, He's saying to us, did you see the child butchered? Do you know, my friends, how many parents butcher their own children? What is butcher their own children? Today, the father, for example, he sends the child to yeshiva. I pay $10,000, but he doesn't want to know anything. I pay enough money, so leave me alone. He doesn't watch him, how he grows. He doesn't watch him in the synagogue. He goes to the synagogue very late, and then his son comes later, after him, much later. And then when he comes to the synagogue, he doesn't even watch him how the child is falling asleep. He's not involved with his child. You know, I see this so many times. That's exactly what we call butchering the children today. Why? When you don't take care of the child properly, what do you expect? If he becomes a mechalel Shabbat, it's exactly like if you have butchered him. That's one message that we can learn. To learn that there is something that Hashem is not happy with the way we educate our children. Now, 2 weeks ago, one of the biggest tzaddikim in this generation was assassinated by a religious Jew. Everybody heard about Baba El-Azhar, the grandson of Baba Saleh alayhi salam. I know him. He's a tzaddik number one. This man never lifted his eyes to anything. They accused him that he is the richest rabbi in Israel. Okay, but what did he do with his money? He didn't go outside. He didn't see the world. He even dug a tunnel between his yeshiva and his house. And all the money he used for yeshivot and to give life to Be'er Sheva. And this man blessed hundreds of thousands of people. And according to the testimony of hundreds of people, they saw miracles from his bracha. And 2 weeks ago or so, a guy came who lost his mind from El-Ad, a center of Torah, and he butchered him. What is this? What is it that Hashem wants to? Why did he take a tzaddik? Everybody knows a tzaddik is taken, is a korban, is a kapara, is an atonement for the Jewish people. Instead, as I said in my drasha, God, instead of choosing to take chas v'shalom, to destroy 100,000 Jews, he chose to take one tzaddik in that way. That's the equivalent according to certain sources. But at the same time, that doesn't mean that we shouldn't think, why is it that a Jew killed such a great tzaddik? You know what it means? The problem of ahava between each and his fellow man. The problem that we have, that today in this generation, everybody to himself. Nobody is thinking about others. Nobody is concerned about others. So Hashem says, if that's the case, I'm going to show you that this is the problem. Hashem is not happy with the way we bring up our children. And Hashem is not happy with the relationship that we have between one and his fellow man or fellow woman. That's the reason, Rabotai, one of the reasons maybe why we lost Baba El-Azhar alav shalom. Why this child had to be butchered. Those are the messengers that Hashem sends to us from every now and then. And sometimes we turn to God. God, how can you be so cruel to let such a thing happen? But God has an answer. What about you? Aren't you cruel towards your children? You know how many children were lost just because of lack of concern from the parents? And all this started from where? Shlom Bayit. Because the man didn't know how to live with his wife, and the wife didn't know how to live with her husband. The outcome is the children, how they are affected. Do I have to tell you more? Of course you understand. And that's exactly the secret of everything. Let me wish you, my friends, that we should have only happy times in our homes. May Hashem bring His Shekhinah. You know, when Hashem brings His Shekhinah at home, you know that the Shekhinah is the divine presence. It says, Vayi Hashem et Yosef, Vayi Ish Matzliach, the Torah says. God was with Yosef, God became successful. The Zohar HaKadosh says, when Hashem is with you, what does it mean? When the Shekhinah is at home, it means everything is a success. Whatever you do. You make money, you have health, you have long life, you have beautiful children, you have good children, polite children, nice children, you have a wonderful wife. That's what we call success. It's not $100 million that you lose in the stock market the next day. No. Real success is when your home is happy, and happy with the children, happy with your wife. And that is only when the Shekhinah is inside. But when we do the wrong thing, the Shekhinah runs away. But if the Shekhinah is at home, you bring her. When you do the Kiddush, and you are Shomer Shabbat, and you learn Torah at home, the walls of your house hear Torah. Like Yitzchak has done. He had a great idea. To celebrate his birthday, he chose to bring somebody to say Divrei Torah. That's the good way. Like in Pirkei Avot says, Yehi betcha bet va'ad lachachamim. Let your house be the house where chachamim gather and talk Divrei Torah. Why? Because we need that the walls hear Torah. You know that if the wall hears Torah, he's going to become your witness in Olam Haba, in the world to come, and he will say, yes, I am a witness. He learned Torah. So that's the source of the success. The real success, Rabotai, is not how much money you make, is how happy you are at home. יהי רצון שהקדוש ברוך הוא ישרה שכינתו בקרבנו, ויהי רצון שנחיה רק בשמחה וטוב לבב עד בואו של משיח כל הימים, אמן כן יהי רצון.